Hello, I'm Josh. This is the fifth and final online video workshop for this set of workshops that we've been doing. For this specific workshop, we're going to be taking some tips and activities from the different workshops we've done so far and putting them all towards one big task. We'll talk through it step by step, but thanks for joining, and here we go. So first of all, I want to take you right back to our first session, which was on confidence. And in that session, we looked at goals and setting goals. Now, for that, if you haven't already got a goal, and if you haven't set yourself a goal, or you maybe want a refresher, here is a little clip and a little recap on how we were talking about setting goals. So setting goals, again, I feel like I'm just going to be preaching stuff that people already do, but in this case, I just want to bring it back to the forefront again, like I said at the beginning. Setting goals is something I do all the time. I always have on my notes on my phone, I have like a list of stuff that I need to do and goals that I need to work on just to keep remembering. And then I tick them off when I feel like I've sort of completed them a bit. One thing that I would say in this case when we're talking about confidence is we talk about being confident. That isn't something that you just wake up one day and you are. If, you know, I'm not going to be dead confident about driving a car one day if I've not had those lessons and that time to really develop how I'm driving. It's a process. Everything's a process in that sense. So we don't need to have one big thing that happens to make us confident. It's actually kind of the opposite. You've got to look at goals and making small goals to add up and to work on what you want to work on. So that's the next task that I want to propose now as part of the session. I want you to really think about goals that you want to work on. So an example of a smaller goal with a bigger goal in mind is maybe, so I know that when I started having meetings with an organisation similar to the Harris, where I came in as a younger person to talk to them and advise them and help them with some of the stuff, some of the questions they had, I went in and I remember sitting on a big table with a lot of people who were older than me who had bigger jobs than me, and I remember that in the conversations I wouldn't speak, maybe I wouldn't interject enough, so I went home and set a little goal to myself thinking next time I'm in that room I'm going to make sure I ask a question. I don't know what question, but I'm going to ask a question. And the next time I did, I pushed myself and I did ask a question, and now I ask a lot of questions. I think that that's an example of a smaller goal that you can just write down, make it a reality, tackle, and then hopefully next time it won't be as daunting. So have a little think about what you want to work on and really break it down and think about if that was a tiny goal, what would it be? And with these goals, I'm asking you to be realistic with them. I'm asking you to make them relatable and real goals that you can work on. In a small scale of time, in a big scale of time. You don't need to write a goal and then do it tomorrow. It's just something that you can write down, be realistic with, and it's for yourself. So it's for you, write your own time scale, work to it yourself. This is for you. So if you haven't already got a goal or you can't find the goals that you set in that first session, use this time now to pause the video and create a goal with the same sort of thinking as we had in that first session. When you've got that goal, press play again and we will crack on with the rest of the session. Okay, so you now should have your goal. What we're going to do now is go to, say, session 2, it was, where we talked about public speaking, but more so we spoke about structure and how important structure was. Now I want you to apply structure to this goal. So let's have a look and a little recap on what we discussed in the second session about structure. So again, as I was talking before about being confident about what you're saying and being comfortable with what you're saying is really important, but the structure of what you're saying is also really important. And the structure might be, I mean, you've all wrote stuff before, we've all wrote things down, and it's, for example, if I was going down to the shops, I would write down, get the bus, go to the shop, get the shopping, get the bus home, eat the food. I wouldn't necessarily say, eat the food, then go to the shop, then get a book. It's not structural. It's not in the right way. And I know that's a bit of a silly example, but by the same respect, it is actually the same as if you're going to go and speak publicly. The structure needs to be right. So your structure is massively important, because if the structure isn't there, it's not necessarily going to make sense because things might not be in the right place. So with your structure, that also includes maybe trimming stuff down. So if you want to talk about something, write down your key points. You don't necessarily need to write a full script. but you could just write bullet points of the stuff that you want to talk about, things that you want to mention in that meeting or in that speech that you're giving, or when you're working with a team, or you've got an agenda when you meet next time, the things you want to talk about in that meeting. Write down the structure of it. In what order do you want to tackle it? Everything has an order, and it's good to know that. So with all those things about structure, there was a lot about the structure of public speaking and how without a structure things don't make sense. If you're writing a little piece about yourself, you can apply that structure that we first spoke about and apply it to, writing something, reading. Structure is useful in all those different formats. It's not just about the one thing that structure applies to. Structure applies to everything. So your goal might be to go public speaking, but it also might be to write a poem, or it might be to write a little bit about yourself, or to read a book or whatever. But all these things, although they're very different, they all need a structure to them. You need like a sort of, with your goal, you need a goal in how to get to it. You need a structure. You need the things in place for you to tick the things off the box and reach the best of the goal. So the structure in its simplest form could be like this. If it is read a book, it would be get the book, read the book, reflect on the book. That is literally a structure. If it was public speaking, it'd be more in depth maybe, because you'd need to discuss, like, you'd think about what you're going to be talking about, how you're going to be talking about it, some time into your body language. But there's a structure to everything. So write down a structure for what it is you're going to do. So now that you've applied a structure to your goal, I want you to now look at the session that we did on well-being and take into account the worries and solution technique that we did. Here's a little recap on the worries and solution techniques that we shared in the well-being session. So for example, think about something that you may be worried about at the minute, or something that you're stressed about. Is it something you have control over? Something that you can change? Is it something that you can't really change, so it's something that you put in the worry bin? Or is it something that you can find a solution to maybe? It's always good to just try the solution part, just so you know for sure. So if you've got a worry, write down that worry on a piece of paper, then put a line in the centre of the paper, and on the opposite side, parallel, write down the solutions that you could do. Now, most of the time, those solutions do lie within your brain. You've got the solutions, but we don't offer ourselves enough time to work out, really what the solutions might be and what they are, because the worry and the stress takes over. So an add-on to this as well would be something that I call the worry bin. So the worry bin is basically if you've got a worry or you've got something that's out of your control. So like me, I worry all the time about things that I can't control. Like say I've got a meeting somewhere and I'm like, oh, well, if I've got to get the train, what about if the train is late and then I'm late for my meeting? Or what am I going to do? Or if I'm driving somewhere and I go, oh, well, there might be loads of traffic, and I worry about things that maybe, well, they are completely out of my control. Or I'm looking back on things, I'm thinking about things that went wrong, and instead of reflecting on them properly, I'm worrying about them. Sometimes there's nothing you can do. You've just got to move on, or you've just got to accept that things can happen. So the worry bin, this is what, my interpretation of it would be, is to get a piece of paper, a bit of scrap paper, and write down that worry. For example, my train's going to be late, or there might be traffic, or someone's going to let me down. You have no control over that. So write on a piece of paper, detach it from your worrisome mind, write it down on a piece of scrap paper, scrunch it up, and throw it in the bin. This way, we're making a physical detachment from this worry, piecing it down, and getting rid of it. You don't need to worry about it anymore. It depends how your brain works, if this is something that would work for you, but just try it out. If you're worrying about something coming up, write it down, scrunch it up, and throw it away, if it's something that's out of your control and that you can't work on. If not, if it is something you feel like you can solve and work on, well then, go through that process of the worries and the solution. But I suppose if things don't fit in there and they are things out of your control, that's a really good technique and a really good thing that you can practice to sort of detach yourself from that worry and just move on. So I'm going to give you some time now to do that activity for this specific goal. So for this specific goal, I want you to write down any worries that you might have for it, that you can't achieve this goal. Write down those worries on a piece of paper. Then put a line in the middle of the paper, and on the opposite side, write down the solutions that you think you can work to. The solutions could be to simply get a pen to write that down. Or it could be that you're not confident enough to maybe, do this goal because you're not at the right place. but maybe think about it in a bit more depth. Think about what's making you uncomfortable about it. Is it because, you're not confident in your ability to write? But I would say, to get comfortable, you need to write more. Think about them really carefully and think about if there are any solutions. Can you put them in place before you do this goal to make sure that you do it in the best of your ability? So now we're looking at questioning, and that's something we discussed in the last session, which was session 4, when we were looking at some idea, proposal, scenario activities, where we were looking at a task to look at the Harris, and you're going to put a piece of art in the main foyer and the main entrance space. But now look at those things that I asked you to question yourself on. So I'm going to put a list here of things that you might want to question for your idea and for your goal. Is it the best thing to be doing? How is it going to benefit you? These things aren't necessarily critical goals. These are things that you can just read to, reaffirm the fact that you're doing it. So, I might really, 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 really want to start a group where my friends all come together and discuss the films they've been watching. That might be a great idea, but I'm going to question it a bit more. What friends can I invite and what will I get out of this? Is it because I just want to do it for fun? If so, yeah, well, you write that down then. It's for you want to do it for fun. You want to do it to connect with your friends a little bit more. That's okay, but what I'm suggesting is question it. As many questions as you can think of for this goal that you're doing. Throw all those questions out there and answer them. That makes you more confident in what you're doing because you've answered all those questions already. So now you should have a really solid goal that has become a structured plan. And all these confidence worries that you had where you may not have been able to do it, you should feel more confident now because you've gone through this process. Now I've just taken sort of 3 or 4 different things from the past workshops that we've done, but in effect you could take any of those tools and techniques that we've talked about, which you've done in these sessions, and you could piece them to one specific goal or one specific event that you're doing or one specific thought that you have. You can apply all these different things, the well-being, the confidence, the public speaking, all of these things can all add up together now. They're all in an imaginary toolkit that you can pluck out of whenever you need it. Now, all of these sessions may have also been a bit, they've been good, but I haven't really taken much from it right now. If that is the case, that's fine as well. These videos are here for you now to watch whenever you want. If you've got a big exam coming up in, 4 months, then, in 3 months, look back at the video. If you're having a few worries, watch the well-being video when you feel like you've dropped a little bit. If you feel like your confidence is a bit wobbly, watch the confidence video. A video like this as well to recap on all the things that we've looked at. It's all there now for you to watch and for you to look back on. It's been a real pleasure to share these ideas with you. It's been a shame it's not been in person, but I think it's great that now you have these videos to look back on whenever you want. So I just showed today a quick way to take bits from all the different things we spoke about and apply them to one task. And as I say there's about 3 or 4 tasks to each video. You can mix and match those for the best results that suit you. So thanks again for watching. Thanks again for having me. And I'll hopefully speak to you very, very soon.